you know that when things go wrong, they're always more fun. If things go perfectly, it's kind of boring. So thank you for indulging me there. So now give a little talk about something. The talk this evening is kind of unmissable. Okay. The talk I decided to give this evening is on real happiness, bliss. I did mention it earlier, and I don't just talk about this. This is what I kind of practice. And it's what kept you going over so many years, as being a monk 50 years. Why on earth are you a monk? Many people ask that question of me. Had a good education, fit, healthy, things were going well in my life. Why on earth do you throw that all away? I'm not throwing it all away. It's just actually finding a deeper part of happiness. And please excuse me when I'm honest about my upbringing and about my life experiences. I still kind of feel sad about some of the girlfriends I dumped. Especially I remember the last one. The reason why, believe it or not, is because I went on a meditation retreat. And the meditation retreat was so beautiful and delightful. I never kind of realized it at the time. You had a greater source of happiness. And so that poor young lady, unfortunately, is like falling in love with something else. A peace, a bliss, a truth deep inside. Honestly. And I never realized what was going on at the time, but after that first meditation retreat, basically there was no possibility of like a sensual relationship anymore. Kind of, you can understand that, there's a deeper happiness you'll find, more stable, more compelling. And even from that time on, you realized, especially when I started teaching, coming to Australia, that I was told to talk about Four Noble Truths. But the Four Noble Truths, I remember, I mentioned this in one of the books I wrote, that we're supposed to talk about suffering, and the cause of suffering, and the end of suffering, and the path leading to the end of suffering. But really, when you listen to that, what's it all about? Suffering. And I remember I tried that first of all, learning how to teach, and all the people who were listening, they actually headed for the door, or they sort of put their heads down, they weren't going to listen at all. They knew enough about suffering. It wasn't actually enticing. It was a message which wasn't really getting through to people. So instead, I changed it around. Still being honest to how the Buddha taught, like bliss, the cause of bliss. Why sometimes there's not enough bliss in this world, and how to create that bliss. Why not? It's just the Four Noble Truths rearranged. It's called marketing. But it's not marketing just to make money off of something which is not appropriate. It's why do you come here on a Friday night? Okay, if it is Kasena, she's our president, so she's got not much. But we want to come here, you don't have to be here. And the reason why you come here, I hope, is because some of these little tips which you hear, they make you become aware of some deeper causes of happiness and why, for some reason or another, we throw that happiness away. I just recalled as one of the very early monks who inspired me, I think it was Jnana Ponika. I met him once, he was really, really old, when I visited Sri Lanka. And he told the story. There's a young man, he was from Germany. As a young man, just growing up, he was with his friends at a beer garden. And they were sitting outside a nice summer's day, drinking some beer. And then the owners of the beer garden, they said that there was a fire in the house where they brewed the beer. And they started running out and telling people to please get out. The house is on fire. But many of this monk's friends, he wasn't a monk yet, just a young man, they thought, wow, free beer. So they ran inside the house to get free beer. And when so many of his friends were inside, the house collapsed. And these were the people he grew up with, the people whose friends, sisters, cousins were killed. And he had to sort of try and dig them out and do whatever they could to save them. But it was such a really difficult experience to bear, seeing all of his friends die at such a young age, just because they were just wanting some beer, that's all. It was nothing evil. But then it turned out tragic for them, and they died. And things like that kept him as a monk for so many years, to actually all his life. Why? Because we find there are some happinesses in this life which are very, very uncertain. And certainly when I was young, I was told if you can get a nice career, then you won't be ridiculously wealthy, but you have enough money to have a safe family, have some kids, a nice house, and you'll be good enough. But then sometimes it didn't work out the way you expected. If it doesn't work out the way you expected, well done. Simply because it's teaching you something much more powerful. It's not just getting by like everybody else. It's much more than that. So that's one of the reasons why when you started investigating this, what they call, generally speaking, a spiritual life, you get some amazing experiences and insights just on what life is all about. Do you know what life is all about? Sometimes we wish we could say yes to that question, but sometimes that life turns around and shows us you haven't fully understood her yet. I say her, him, it, whatever. But after a while, you can see so much more deeply into who you are, how you work, and what's worth expending your energy on in this life. You've only got a certain amount of energy. What do you want to do in your life? After 50 years of being a monk, and I'm still very happy being a monk, and I ordain many other people as monks and nuns, and it makes me very content to see what they do with their life and how this Buddhist society has helped so many, 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 many people. I don't know if she's here this evening, but this one lady, I mentioned it earlier in the talk before coming in here. I always give 2 talks on a Friday, one to the visitors out there in the reception area and one to you. But I wanted to share this story, not just with the visitors inside, but the people here. This lady, she came to see me, she had to see me all the way from Canada. That's the main reason she flew over here. She has a sister here, but the number one reason, she wanted to see Ajahn Brahm. Why? Just get a photograph, you can get a photograph on the net. You say you want to meet you? Why? You can just meet me anywhere. But what she wanted to do was just to say thank you. Because she had tongue cancer. And apparently what I said, I think her sister who lives here, just asked me to say a few words to her. Just, and record it and send it to her, on her smartphone. For once those phones were used smartly. And for her, it got her through the skin cancer. No, sorry, still say skin cancer, the tongue cancer. And I remember she was showing her wrist. There's like a big sort of scar there. That's where they cut out some muscles or skin and made that into her tongue. And that's what she speaks with now. And actually to see her, and just to see just how wonderfully she had recovered from that. And she could speak perfectly. She was a GP before, she's a GP now again, she's gone back to work. And she was just so overjoyed how well these little teachings had worked. And she insisted on coming to see me. And she managed to do that. It made my day to actually to see how these teachings, they're not just theories. They're not just for people to argue over a cup of coffee. What I get inspired by is the fact they actually work. And whatever you're doing in life. And to see that was well done. How do they work? Why do they work? What is the meaning of life? You know, years and years and years ago, I say years and years and years ago because I've been around years and years and years, but I recall just being a help to another monk, another teacher who was giving a meditation retreat. He was giving it in the town of Oban in Scotland. Beautiful place, but a long distance from anywhere. And I was just sitting next to him, like Venerable Dayalu sitting next to me. And this lady came in for her interview, and she said to this senior monk, "I've just come in here to thank you for saving my life." Not to me, but to this other monk, senior to me. And the way she said it, I've been listening to interviews for hours and hours and hours. I really woke up. The way she said it, she was serious. It really meant something very deep to her. Emotionally, it had the loud sound of truth. And then, of course, I listened. What had he done? And for this lady, she was a student in some university in Middle England somewhere, and she had some emotional difficulties, like students do, and went to see the psychologist, for free, and they just gave her some Valium. And she'd been on that Valium for years. And she came on this retreat. She misunderstood. She thought that when you keep precepts, like the 5 precepts, many of you Buddhists know the 5 precepts, but I hope you're not all Buddhists who come here. The 5 precepts, the 5th one was you're not supposed to take alcohol or drugs. She never understood it meant non-medicinal drugs. If you have to have some stuff because you've got diabetes or something else, of course you keep taking those drugs. But she thought, I've got to give up my Valium. And she did. It's not that hard on a retreat in this quiet coastal town of Oban in the northwest of Scotland. So she managed to do that. A bit difficulty, but she managed. But then she had to go home. And her home was in the middle of England somewhere. The first problem was she had to get the bus to Glasgow, and Glasgow station had to get the connection back to her hometown. Now, if you've been to Perth station, that's like nothing compared to a huge station like Glasgow. That was incredibly stressful. Even I might stress out trying to find the right platform in Glasgow station. And for her, just overcoming the addiction to Valium, that almost, she said, I remember, that she almost felt many times like jumping onto the tracks, committing suicide, because that's how sort of hard it was. But then she said she'd given up the Valium for so many days. She managed to hang on, get on a train, get back home. And she said, sitting in her front room for about a month in an armchair, not doing anything else. So those results of that Valium could wear itself out of her system. With everything else she had learnt about patience and kindness to her own body and kindness to everything else. Don't push yourself. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. And that's why these letters are down here. Make peace, be kind, be gentle. And that got her through. She got herself off the Valium and back to work, back to life. And that's why she came on this retreat to do some meditation, which she enjoyed, but also to say thank you. And thank you for saving my life. I've never had a drug dependency. I know some of you might say I'm addicted to tea. I like tea. If ever any of you were born in UK, here, other than me, in the back there, you know in UK I've seen this. As soon as you're off your mother's milk, you start drinking tea. I saw that. I saw this little baby, and after she was breastfed, then she had a little saucer and some tea, to get her onto tea. That's just our life up there. But anyway, just to show you that 1 year people were joking about Ajahn Brahm, if you had a choice between enlightenment and a cup of tea, which one would you take? And just to tease people, I said, I'll take the tea. But then on one occasion, a 3-month range retreat, people were needling me, joking, said, you're attached to tea. I said, no, I'm not going to be attached to tea. I'm going to prove it to you. And so I said, I'm going to not take any tea for the whole 3 months. And after 3 days, wait, it's not what you expect. After 3 days, a couple of the monks came to see me and they say, Ajahn Brahm, we were just joking, please take some tea. I said, why? He said, because they were with another English monk years ago who made the same vow to give up tea. And he was a pain in the neck for 3 months. Really difficult to deal with. And I noticed more about my mind and my body. So it's okay, I'll be okay. So I just gave it up for 3 months. Never had a cup of tea at all. No coffee, nothing. I was fine. Sometimes through the power of meditation, it's amazing what you can actually do with any drugs, I'm not talking about big drugs, I'm talking about tea or coffee or whatever. You've got another angle to your mind. You can know how to overcome the problems and difficulties in life. And a lot of that is just having happiness in other areas. Please, in your life, you will have some very difficult things to deal with. But when you do have difficulties and disappointments in your life, please don't abandon the happiness which is out there for everybody to drink in as much as you like whenever you need it. The sunsets, just watching the animals in the forest, watching the sandalwood trees grow in the forest. There's so many little things you can spot and watch. Whenever I teach a meditation retreat, usually over in Jhana Grove, but other places in the world too, sometimes when I talk to people there to give them advice, sometimes I say, people get some of the most peaceful, beautiful experiences in their life when they just sit on a chair by themselves and just look at the trees grow. Have you ever seen trees grow? You're not patient enough. They do grow. You know that. Have you ever seen them grow? Sometimes you've got to sit down there and look for a couple of hours without moving. If you blink your eyes or get up and turn on a computer or something, you miss it. I think you understand what I mean there. A little bit of a trick, so that you can be peaceful long enough. And even if you don't see the tree grow, sometimes you see the beauty of nature, the beauty of the stars at night. It's one of the great things about our Jhana Grove Retreat Centre. We've got these two beautiful stupas, chediyas. They were donated by people close to Borobudur, the same stone, same design. And sometimes this time of year, the warm nights, you just lay back on those with your eyes open. You stare up at the Milky Way. You stare up, not doing anything, not expecting anything, not trying to work out anything, not to try and discover some new scientific phenomena, just to see, without wanting anything in the whole world. And that becomes so incredibly beautiful. That beauty which is out there in the world, when you start to see that, it's not something you can buy. It's not something you can photograph. People try to photograph it to try and keep it, as if, okay, this is mine now, I can store it away and use it whenever I want. It's more powerful than that. It's there just for moments. I learned that once. Actually, the time I learned it, and I made sure I never forgot it. When I was about 20, I went over to India. This was many years ago. I'm 73 now, over 50 years ago. And what I wanted to do was to be able to take a photograph of the Himalayan Mountains. When I saw photos of those, I thought they were so astounding. This whole range of mountains on the horizon. And I had a small camera which I brought with me from UK to India. But I never did enough research, because when I went to India, it was the monsoon season. There were clouds all over the northern horizon. And day after day after day, I tried to find a moment when those clouds receded, but they never did. And so because of that, I gave up after a month or two in northern India. But then one day, there's many places I could see, Buddhist places. I was in Kathmandu, and I heard from the youth hostel there, that there was a postal bus which would go up to the north of Nepal every day. And because it was a postal bus, they weren't supposed to do this, but the driver would let tourists in the back of the bus if you paid him a few rupees. And so I paid my little fare of a few rupees. There's a couple of Americans with me on this trip. And we went to the very north of Nepal, to the border between Nepal and Tibet. You weren't allowed to cross over in those days, but at least you get to the border. And on the way, the driver stopped for lunch. We had an hour free. So, we had enough food. So we walked up a hill just to see what was on top. And I will never forget this, how stupid it is to try and capture beauty, to capture happiness, to keep it for long periods of time. Because when we got to that top of that hill, the clouds parted for the first time in months. I don't know why it did it at that time. You could see, the first time, one of my dreams, what was on my bucket list, to see the whole expanse of the Himalayan Mountains stretching as far as I could see to the east and the west. And it was kind of breathtaking. You know what I did? I left my camera in the car. I ran down as fast as I could. ran back up much slower because it was a steep hill. And when I got to the top of the hill, the clouds went back. And those two Americans who were sitting up there said, "Where did you go?" It was such a beautiful opportunity to see the Himalayan Mountains, and I saw nothing, absolutely nothing. It was teaching me a lesson. If you try and capture happiness, you spoil it. You can't capture it. It's there, these moments of your life. And when you see it, just pause and stay. It stays inside your memory. It can never stay on a photograph. That's why sometimes when some of you come and take photographs of me, you're not taking photographs of me, that's not Ajahn Brahm. It's just this old body, in which I live. It's not really me. So that's one of the reasons why beauty and happiness is there to enjoy and let go of almost immediately. And then it stays longer with you, and deeper and deeper and deeper. It's really weird. It's like when you try and hold something, it's like water. You can't hold it in your hand, it all drips out. When you stop trying to hold it, the whole lake just stays in the palm of your hand as long as you need. So this is some of the happinesses you learn, why we actually destroy happiness in life. And as a monk, you try to do the least possible. I'm a lazy monk. I am. And so I don't know why you're celebrating all the things I've done in my life. Not much. Just learning how to be peaceful and still. Learning how to look at the stars at night. Look at the flowers and discover so many new things when you walk through the bush. See so many beautiful animals. You know that there's so much delight in that bush in which we live. I remember seeing some of the possums come out at night. And the possums usually have a baby on the back. They're just looking for things, exploring. And when you see the little possums, they too are absolutely gorgeous. But if you try and hold them, of course they get scared. You should never try and hold an animal, especially one of the indigenous animals which live in the forests of our world. Your job is just to be kind to them, wish them well, and enjoy their company just for a few moments. And then they part. When you learn that as a monk, you try and share that wisdom with each one of you. All of you have partners in life, or looking for partners. Do you want to hold them and keep them? Afraid of losing them, afraid of saying the wrong thing? That's where you create mistakes in life. Instead of actually trying to keep them, hold them, preserve them, because you're afraid of losing them, you lose them really quickly. Instead, enjoy each other's company, share, be honest, be truthful. That's one of the other things, but people are so scared in life, they're very rarely truthful. As a monk, I've got nothing to lose. That's why you tend not to be afraid at all. So that's why you can stay with even what sometimes people call dangerous animals, like snakes. I was telling somebody today, one of my favorite animals when I was in Thailand was the tarantula. Just mentioning that word and people get afraid. But the tarantulas, they don't harm you. I remember these, in a hot season over in Thailand, the tarantulas, there's a whole big family, couple of families, almost like a clan of tarantulas. And they would live in the roof of my hut. And every now and again you'd be meditating. Because it was so hot, I'd only have my lower robe on, but from here upwards I was no clothes on at all. It's only myself in the hut and the tarantulas. And sometimes they would fall on you. They didn't do it on purpose. It was hot and they were getting a bit sleepy, is what I reckon. They'd fall and you go. Blah, 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 blah. It was really delightful. It was kind of ticklish. So I was very happy for them to please come and fall on me again. And they're really big spiders. Are you afraid of spiders? I didn't know at the time, but apparently that if those spiders they actually bite you, you get superpowers. Is that true? Can you actually call me not just Ajahn Brahm, but Spider Monk? But anyhow, you kind of love them. They're your friends. You shared your hut with them. And you never hurt or harm them. And that was kind of the beauty. Instead of looking at life with fear or trying to capture it or trying to escape from it, or like somebody said today, asked me the question, what about pest control? Ajahn Brahm, what is your views on pest control? And I told them that please don't try and annihilate your husband. Your wife, your kid, your politicians, your people you really don't like in this world. Is that the right way to get rid of enemies and solve that problem? With pest control, I don't know who you think the pests are in this world. But isn't it nice to have gratitude towards the pests in your life? Not trying to get rid of them, but trying to understand them. What do the pests really want? Can't we have some kind of compromise? And of course we can. One of the strange things which I've seen, practiced, and it's amazing when people have the confidence to be able to do this. If there are any pests in your life, like ants, if there are such pests in your life, talk to them. I don't mind saying this. Please don't lock me up being a crazy monk. But I remember just talking to this big ant mound outside of one of the huts which I built over in Bodhinyana Monastery. There's a big mound of ants, and you're not really supposed to build a hut where it's going to impede on things like ant mounds. That's part of our Vinaya rules. But there was no real other place to build this hut. So what I did, I went and sat in front of that ant mound and said, look, I'm not going to destroy your home. I'm going to build it around it. So I'm going to be really, really careful. I was a builder. So, no, please, we look after you. Can you look after us? I remember that ant mound because no other human beings have lived in the land of Bodhinyana Monastery for long periods of time. So one of the Anagarikas decided on a test for the ants in this anthill. They had a cube of sugar, which you usually put in coffee or something, and they put the cube of sugar on top of the ant mound to see how the ants would solve the problem of this delicious treat, a cube of sugar on top of their ant mound. Because they couldn't actually pull it through any of their holes. What would they do? Would they actually just go up and just put it apart, and then when they kind of put it into small bits and then put it into their anthill? They didn't do that. You saw them. They excavated from underneath the ant cube. And day after day it grew a little bit lower as it went deeper into the anthill, until it got so, the anthill didn't get bigger or smaller, until it got just right underneath the top of the ant mound, and then they covered it over afterwards. They excavated it. That was incredible engineering. I think human beings wouldn't be able to do that. That's actually how they dealt with that. But anyway, one of the things you notice, you got respect, for these little animals you shared the forest with. And for me, I would always include them in the chanting when I was building this. They went on their paths through the forest, and I was built around those paths. And this little is an A-frame hut built on little stumps. And all that time I lived in the hut, the ants, they just went around it. Had this beautiful sense of harmony and peace. We never interfered with each other at all. When I got up in the morning, I'd always make sure I never stepped on any of their tracks. Extra care. And those ants never came into the hut at all. Then, one of the other people staying at the monastery, we had a tractor which we used to take big loads of wood away. And because they weren't mindful, they drove one of those wheels over their ant mount. I can't get angry, but I was really disappointed and told them off. What did you do that for? It's only an ant mound. There's more than that. It's kind of my ant mound. I had made some contact with them. And from that time on, they came into the hut. If you don't look after what people call pests, the pests don't look after you. And they'll give you so much trouble. One of the other stories with pests, which I kind of like, there was one of the forest monks in Thailand years ago. He told this story, absolutely true, that he was what we call like the Tudong monks. That idea of Tudong monks is another beautiful tradition which we would love to keep here in Western Australia, but it's the lay of the land doesn't really allow it that easily. The Tudong monks, you take everything you own. It's usually just a bowl and a robe, and you walk, taking everything you have with you. After 5 years basic training in Thailand, it was my turn to be a Tudong monk. And I had all I needed was on my back. Not in a rucksack, just a bowl. There was a mosquito net umbrella, which you had to have, and a few other basic things for life. And the wonderful thing about that, you could go anywhere, in Thailand. People have done this in Sri Lanka too. Anywhere in Sri Lanka, it doesn't matter what part of Sri Lanka, up the north, up the east, the west, the south, everywhere. And people will always feed you. They don't have to be Buddhists, just because they're kind and you're kind to them. And so, when I was in Thailand, you could go anywhere you wanted in that land, just walking. And the lovely thing was, everything you owned in this world, nothing was allowed to be stored anywhere. I had my passport, had my bowls, how I could get food. Just had a robe, which I used as a pillow at night time, and another robe to over me to be my bed sheet. Had everything you ever wanted in the world. And it was so small. What it taught me is just how little you really need in life. There was never any just in case. That just in case never made any sense to me at all. Sometimes we have so many possessions, so many extra goods, and it's not just in case. It doesn't help us. It makes it really hard for us to store everything, wherever you have it. And even these days, whenever I go travelling, which I often do. Where's my suitcase? When I go overseas, this is all I take. I really love that when you come home and then you go through the Perth airport. A lot of times, they say, "Sir, have you collected your baggage yet?" "Yeah, it's here." But they get to know me now. I was just that crazy monk. But they always let me go straight through. Although sometimes they have a nice conversation. Sometimes they come up and say, "Ajahn Brahm, are you giving the talk tonight?" A lot of the people who work in Perth Airport, they come here. "Is anyone here from Perth Airport this evening?" "You can confess, it's okay, I won't dob you in." I can't resist this story. Once I was coming back from Sri Lanka, I don't know why, this was many years ago, and that's when they had the dogs, you had to line up for the passport control, and they had the dog come up and down, just while the travellers were waiting at the passport control. That was a great place where they were still enough that everybody could get checked by the dog. And I will never forget this time, because they brought this dog up and down. I was in the line there, and the dog stopped at me. Really did stop. And he put his muzzle in my robe, and he wouldn't come out, and he started wagging its tail. It was like an overnight flight, so I was really exhausted, so I didn't mind. But the person which was in front of me took a step forward, and the person behind me took a step back. They did want to be associated with me. But I was relaxed, I didn't have anything. And then it took a long time to get everybody checked, and then they took the dog down a second time. Past all the other travellers, and when it came to me, put his muzzle in my robe again, and they tried to pull it out. Took quite a yank to put it out. It was wagging its tail all the time. And so even the people on the side went a bit further back. But of course, I just don't have anything. So when they asked me, they actually asked me straight up, said, "Where are the drugs?" And I said, "Look, I don't have any drugs." "Well, why did that dog stop?" So kindness, loving kindness, and make peace, be kind, be gentle. Animals love that. And so, because it's very easy, you don't need to sort of strip me down. I just open up my robe. I won't do it here, otherwise I'll get in trouble. He said, "Have a look." It takes about 2 minutes to look through this. Because I had so few things. "Oh, okay, just off you go." There was nothing there. See, very easy to see. I don't know why that dog did that, but afterwards I felt quite sorry for the dog. I hope it doesn't get in trouble. I hope it doesn't lose its job as a sniffer dog. Because it got a person who was totally clean. But anyway, that's just how much joy you have with simplicity, and being able to just to go wherever you want in Thailand, and you hardly have anything at all. Imagine that. Imagine you can be like that, flying through the air or going from place to place in this world. You don't need anything. I love that idea of freedom. We always think the more things we have, just the safer we will be. Come on. It's more of a burden. It's wonderful to be able to have less, even just where you live. Many of you have seen where I live, the cave. It's a monk-made cave. Every home should have one. It's cool. You don't need heating or aircon. If there's a bushfire, I'll be perfectly safe. If there is, where has Eddie gone? If there is a third world war, Eddie, you can come and take shelter in my cave. Nothing will ever get through that. It's a nice sense of like simplicity and peace. And that's a beautiful thing to have, and the happiness you get from that. That's also why just in the meditations, that's why I chose that subject. It's only a half an hour meditation a few minutes ago, but it was a really nice one. And you get this wonderful sense of happiness and joy just by being still. You don't want anything, you don't need anything. Imagine that. All those things in the world you're worried about, no worry at all. You don't have anything, you don't need anything. Your sense of like being free. You know, sometimes I try and imagine what it's like to be living in the world. The world is like a prison. You don't have that freedom. Just to relax and not think about anything and enjoy just the sunset in the evening or the moonrise. I love moonrises. Especially over in Bodhinyana Monastery, because we're on a hill. Sometimes some of the sunsets, again, are gorgeous. Even the moonrises, they're beautiful. Big disk of the moon. Sometimes you can't see that, there's too many buildings around. When there's hardly any buildings, or you're up on a sort of a ridge, it can be so gorgeous. What beauty have you enjoyed today? This week? If you can actually just linger on that joy, it doesn't matter who you are. You don't have to pay for it. You don't need any electronic equipment for it. It's just there, free for everybody. Any race, religion, gender, any disabilities or lack of disabilities, you can all experience the beauty in this world and the freedom. I don't know if I made the point strong enough, but if you've got so many things, you can't enjoy that beauty. Too many possessions. If you're in your house and it's a big house, you never go outside. How can you see the sunrise or the stars at night when you've got so many lights around your street? What a beautiful thing it is when you've got little to actually block out the view of beauty in this world and a sense of peace and freedom in your own body and in your mind, so you can get these beautiful, peaceful meditations there for you at any time, any place, wherever you are. That's one of the things why I like being a monastic. Yeah, it's a lot of work sometimes. Sometimes you get a lot of criticism. Always want to do some more work, some more help. But nevertheless, the sense of peace and freedom you feel. Would you like to be free? What does freedom mean? Whenever you feel to be free, it means you've got nowhere to go. You don't want to go anywhere. Nothing you need to be. You're respected for who you are. No goals in your life. Being here is more than good enough. Why do you want to go anywhere? If I could give you, if I was like a magician, if I really was a spider monk, and I can say, where would you like to go in the world? I could magic up this first class ticket to go anywhere in the world you would like to go. Would you like to go there? And what does it feel like if you feel, I'm very happy where I am. I don't need to go anywhere. What would it be like if your partner, sitting close to you, you look at them and you think, yeah, they may not be the best in the world, but they're more than good enough. Why not say that? Instead of always finding what's wrong with them. Finding what's right with them. Always finding fault with life. You know, why didn't I get that promotion? You must be really dumb if you want a promotion. If you get promotion, yeah, you get more money, but you have to pay more tax. And no matter how much money it is, it's never enough. It's much better to have less money and more freedom. Is that right? Have a look at me. How much money do I earn? How much money do you pay me, Mrs. President? 0. They say, how much do you earn as a monk? How much do you earn, Diana? What we earn is, when I give a nice talk, I look at you and all the smiles, that's what I earn. That's my payment. You're creating some happiness in this world, giving that happiness, that joy, that sense of freedom to others, so you can enjoy for nothing at all, just a bit of fun, a bit of beauty, and a bit of happiness. So you don't need to go keep looking for another partner in this world. What you got is good enough. I'm going to finish off just with one little story. There was a couple of, I can just checking they're not here. There's a couple of Thai girls years ago, and they were sisters. An elder sister, younger sister. And the elder sister, they wanted a bit of marriage counselling. I'm really good at marriage counselling. I've never been married for 50 years. Never been married, actually. But nevertheless, they came up to me, and the first one said that they were having difficulties with their husband. Really difficult to live with. And so, fine, I gave them some advice. And basically, they were wanting to get divorced. And then, the younger sister, she was trying to find a partner in life. And every time, she was going out with someone for maybe a month, then it all fell apart. It all went wrong. And so she was single again. So she was asking me some advice how to not just get a guy, but to keep him. She was really wanting a partner in life, but could never find one. Her sister had a husband she didn't want. Exactly, that's what I thought. Come on, you're sisters. You grew up together. Your older sister's got, a used husband. Why can't you swap? To a monk, that's logical. But not to them. But why is that? What you don't have is what you want. And what you want is what you don't have. Isn't it nice just to be content with what you've got? Not the best, but good enough. Your job? Not the best, but good enough. Just your health? Not the best, but good enough. Your family? Not the best, but good enough. Your Buddhist society? Not the best, but good enough. The talk? Not the best, but good enough. Thank you for listening. Okay. If you're going to do it. Okay. Now we usually have the questions, comments, and complaints. Okay, the first question coming this evening. Here we go. The first one is from Mr. Putin. Sorry, Ajahn Brahm. I always crack that joke about famous people asking questions. When I was in Victoria, in Melbourne, they actually did that. They had his pictures. I don't know where they got them from. This is from Mr. Putin. It had Mr. Putin's face on it. And then Mr. Trump. And then Mr. Kim Jong-un. I'm going to be in big trouble one day. What is your recommendation for a mind burdened by anxiety which imagines all kinds of worst-case scenarios could most likely happen. War, horrible sickness, death, Donald Trump, etc. It never mentioned Mr. Putin. This must be from Mr. Putin. No, first of all, please, if you imagine all those worst-case scenarios, please write them down and let me keep them for a year. And if the world doesn't end, whoever wrote that will have to become a monk. No questions answered. And if it does happen and the world does end, then don't blame me because I won't be here if the world ends. Basically what that does is to show you that most of the things you're afraid of do not happen at all. What you're anxious of never happens. It's usually something much worse. Nothing happens at all. And anyway, it's amazing. It gives you a nice little test. There's always ways and means to deal with it. But the fear itself is what needs to be afraid of. A lot of times you notice what you're really afraid of doesn't happen. For example, are you afraid of aircraft explosions? It's very rare to have an aircraft explosion. When was the last time there was an aircraft explosion where many people died? Do you remember? It's a long time ago. But we still think we're afraid of things which don't really happen. Wars. Yes, a few wars go on in the world, but how many? More people die through drug abuse than wars. More people die of car accidents maybe, or violence. I don't know the figures. Are you afraid of those? That's something you can actually do something about. Live a much happier life. Okay, so what is a Buddhist society doing? Actually doing to help, say the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Are we doing anything? Are we just doing chanting? It's more than that. More than that. What we're doing with, because he was sending a video for my 50th anniversary. The gentleman over in Eastern Europe, all the talks which I give here, he translates them. He asks, can I please translate these into Ukrainian so that people in Ukraine can get a bit of a boost? Not just chanting, but get access to all these talks we give here. When he asked me if he could do that, I said no. Unless you also translate it into Russian as well. I want it on both sides. And that's what he does. He spends us so much time, hard work. We managed to find some funds somewhere to send to him to actually pay for the translators and everything. And he translates all these talks into Russian and Ukrainian, puts them online, so people in those war zones can actually get some good advice and not just get caught up, in some of the bad ideas from some of the leaders of our world. This is something we can do. And that's one of the things I'm very proud of doing, saying no unless you do both, the Russian and the Ukraine. And everybody else in this world. If I had the possibility of actually sending these talks to the politicians in the United States, I'd only do that if it was given to the Democrats and the Republicans. I don't want to make sort of separations of one side or the other. Otherwise, again, it doesn't work. You don't want to blow up one side. You don't want to blow up any side. That's what I call pest control. Talk to them, and then they find that there's always solutions if you can talk. Oh, and actually a question from the United States. What is the best way to deal with people who try to motivate you with shame? Don't do this, you should be doing this or that. How do you deal with it internally and externally? If that's from the United States, whenever I went to the United States, they say this is the country of freedom. When anybody claimed they're free, you just really doubt them. The real freedom is you respect a person no matter what their view is. And if someone's got a gun, you learn how to run fast. I shouldn't have said that. But try to motivate you with shame. Please, be careful not to confuse making mistakes with being ashamed. We all make mistakes, and when you do make a mistake, please, what should you do with mistakes? Be ashamed of it, hide it, try to convince other people that it wasn't a mistake after all. Whenever you make a mistake, do a silly thing, always admit it. Let people know. Sometimes my mistakes are very funny. I learned that from Ajahn Chah. Every time I made a mistake, Ajahn Chah would never criticize me. He never shouted at me, "You stupid monk." He would laugh. He would laugh uproariously. He only had 4 years of education. I went to Cambridge University, for goodness sake. He couldn't believe how stupid these people with degrees were. I proved that to him. And sometimes I thought, why did Ajahn Chah have so many Western monks? Because we made him laugh the most. All the stupid... I think you've heard this stupid story before. In the early days with Ajahn Chah, we didn't have many supplies. So when I needed a bar of soap, something simple, a bar of soap, you had to go to your teacher and ask him, "Have you got a bar of soap so I can use it?" But I had to ask in Thai language. And the word for soap was sabu. What I said was sapo. It's close enough. But sapo meant pineapple. So what my teacher heard, I wanted a pineapple. And he looked at me and said, "What do you want pineapple for?" I said, "To wash." And he laughed at that joke for months. Always telling the visitors, these Westerners and these very highly educated people from UK, they're not like us. These people, they wash with pineapples. It must hurt, but obviously it must be better for them. So I never felt ashamed. I felt privileged to be able to cheer up my teacher. So if you ever want to cheer me up, you tell me some of the stupid things you've got up to. And I would also laugh. So don't be ashamed. You're just a human being. You make mistakes as I make mistakes. From Germany. Dear Ajahn Brahm, I have problems with my pelvic floor cramping during meditation. Relaxing and accepting work most of the time, but still feel unhappy. Do you have any advice? I've never had that experience of pelvic floor collapsing, but nevertheless, see what the doctor says, if you possibly can get something to support the pelvic floor, or use cushions or chairs or something. There's so many people doing meditation these days. I'm really, really, really surprised and disappointed. There's not more high-tech meditation cushions. I always mention this on retreats. Imagine, if you want to open up a business, Okay, you want to make some money in life, just get a high-tech meditation cushion. I've already designed most of it, so a bigger, not just these small ones, quite big, and you have a remote control, and if your bottom is a bit low, you press the bottom, it inflates with air, it lifts your bottom up. For those of you who need sort of a cushion under your knee, it can lift the knee up. Or if you're too cold, you can press another button, it warms up. If you need a massage, like I've seen this on some of these chairs, even on high-class cars, or on the high-class seats on the aircraft. You press another button, it gives you a nice massage. So if you have one of those on your meditation cushion, imagine that'd be much more comfortable. And also, because sometimes the people they come to meditation, they're a bit tired, press another button, and then you have the menu comes up of the different types of coffee you can get, and it actually comes out at the bottom. You've got your cup, and on the meditation cushion, you've got some water there, some coffee or some tea, whatever you like, and that can come out too, so you never have any problem with sloth and torpor. High-tech meditation cushions. Would you like to buy one? Christmas time? Waisak? So anyway, that's one thing you could try and do, and can overcome some of the problems with physical problems. You don't have to sit cross-legged. I do that because this is literally my most comfortable position. You know, sometimes you wonder on aircraft, I would love to be on an aircraft where you can just sit on the floor. They don't allow that. You have to sit on a chair. That was torture for me the first time I did that. 7 years I never sat on a chair at all in Thailand. And then when I went to visit my family, it's on Philippine Airlines, sit on a chair in economy class, and that hurt like hell. If I was flat on the floor, I'd be fine. Imagine how many more people can get in an aircraft if they just sat on the floor. And just an ordinary aircraft, you can have two levels. Anyway, next question. What is the right way to let go of something painful when I meditate? How can I find peace? I'm 73. Me too. Sick. I'm not. And want peace. How can I let go easily and find stillness? How to let go is to be kind. How do you be in the present moment? Be kind to the past. Be kind to the future. That's the main trick, to let go of past and future. Be kind to it first. I'm over time, so I better do the last question now. Tim from United States. Does reminiscing to nostalgic experience of past make it more bitter or sweet? You know, because it's 50th anniversary and people ask me all sorts of questions, what I really did in those old days. What was it really like with Ajahn Chah? What's it really like building monasteries? Come on, Ajahn Brahm, be truthful. No. You can't be truthful about the past. Because so many years have gone past, you cannot remember what really happened. You just kind of make up these stories. I remember some of the things, many of the things were true, but many of the unpleasant things, I don't know, they disappeared. You have let them go. So if you are going to be nostalgic, remember the past, remember the nice things about the past. If you're trying to remember about your partner, remember all the nice things about them. If you're going to be nostalgic about your mum, remember all the nice things about her. Or you say yes. Forget about the rotten things she did. And that's the same with everybody else. If you want to remember the nice things about Ajahn Brahm, remember all the funny jokes, not the bad jokes. Okay? And then, if you remember about the beautiful things in life, you find there's hardly any conflicts. That's how to overcome the wars in life. Remember the beautiful things which people do and the kindness which they give. I don't know how you can differentiate between this soldier and that soldier. They're just human beings, maybe speak different language, but they feel the same amount of pain when they get a bullet in them. The blood is red no matter what country you come from. And everybody has the people they love and care for, and people who care for them and love them. It makes no sense. I know, okay, last story, I promise. When one of Ajahn Chah's disciples, had to go into the army, it was like conscription. And he said, what should I do? I'm going to join the army next week. And Ajahn Chah said, make sure when you go on the firing range, you train so you're a good shot. I said, why? So that means you can always shoot over their heads. If you're a really good shot, you'll never kill anybody. But if you're not a good shot, who knows where that bullet's going to go? It's kind of good advice. That used to... Okay, really last story. I remember reading this in a book once. They said one of the hardest things which generals had to do was actually to make sure that their soldiers actually shot to kill. Because most soldiers would never shoot to kill. They had a gun, but they would always either not pull the trigger or, shoot in a different direction, even if it meant they had to die. And just senior military officers knew that. So they would always try and demonize the enemy. Make them just, these are really cool, they haven't really got a heart, they're not the same as us. They're just not worth anything. Please never let that happen. Please make sure that every human being is treated like a human being, regarded as a human being, no matter what country they come from, no matter what age, what gender, affiliation, whatever, no matter what religion. They're human beings. They deserve respect. When you respect the other, a lot of wars can't happen. Who would go to war? Dictators only have the power that people give them. Who refuse to give them that power, they can't do anything. Thank you for listening. Thank you. So now I'm going to bow to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and then you can all go home for have a nice, quiet evening if you wish. Arahang Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Suakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Sawaka Sangho Sanghan Namami. You can bow if you want, you don't have to bow. Bow is a very good exercise which makes you thin. Didn't work for me.